Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Hari ini kita bersama dengan Profesor Sohail Inayatullah, seorang tokoh futurist yang terkenal dalam di kalangan umat Islam. Saya secara peribadi sangat berbesar hati dapat bersama dengan rakan-rakan untuk menemu ramah beliau, bertanyakan perkara-perkara yang penting, terutamanya untuk umat Islam secara keseluruhannya dalam mendepani pelbagai cabaran, baik di Malaysia maupun di seluruh dunia. Thank you very much, Prof, for having time with us. Okay. You are the so-called the poster boy for Muslim futurists. What is your optimism towards making a better Muslim Ummah in general?
Well, for me, the challenge is most people do copy-paste futures. And copy-paste is easy. And the real challenge is to do the intellectual thinking, the struggle to do innovative futures. And so that's the shift we want to see. And if you're going to do innovative futures, then you're asking who can work with you. In the old model, it was just who's near you. Luckily, as we were talking about, the new technologies allow global crowdsourcing. So what you were saying, the entire Ummah can help you innovate. It doesn't have to be you and just two friends. You now have access to billions of people. Those brains and minds and hearts, you can use them for projects. So before it was single sourcing based on expertise, and that leads to copy-paste, right?
Yeah.
You find the biggest expert and you just copy their work. Hierarchy. And this is saying, no, actually, you don't have to find the biggest expert. You can find people who have smart brains, who have understanding about their area. You can ask them questions about the future. So that gives me optimism. It's a new global sharing knowledge economy. And that then leads to the end of copy-paste and then something else.
When you mention about the new Ummah, of course we need to start the conversation. Clearly, everyone want to talk about something new, something crazy. Can you perhaps suggest what type of debates that can be useful for people to, especially Muslim, to start something achievable in the future? Something useful?
I was just in Pakistan recently, and if you know, Delhi has amazing smog, Lahore has amazing smog. So within the confines of nation states, that's your smog, not my smog. Smog doesn't care. So the only way to solve climate change and smog is to not do it at the level of the nation state. In your language, it's the level of the Ummah.
Yeah.
So most of our problems can only be solved at the global governance level. Climate change, for example, flow of goods and services, the way we think, none of those are nation-centric anymore. So this is all suggesting the solutions to our current predicament won't come from the framework of the current predicament, which is nation-state-centric. So for Pakistan and India to have cleaner air, they have to develop governance protocols outside of their nations. So we're seeing that everywhere. So that's part of getting outside of my personal view, outside of the nation state, to deeper global governance.
We, from Ummatic Innovation, is just an initiative to start conversation on Muslim Ummah and innovation. It seems to be quite a disparity between these two big themes, Islam and innovations. Therefore, when we try to suggest to, especially a younger Muslim, to take a more productive and useful debates, what would you then suggest how they're going to start?
The strength of course, Islamic civilization is that's historical. That's its strength, right?
Yeah.
Assets to use, people to be inspired by, stories to remember, that's brilliant. The weakness of Islamic civilization is historical.
Not advantage.
It's a strength and a weakness. weaknesses, instead of thinking about who do I want to be like 20 years from now, what do I want my community to be like, everyone's talking about, well, in the 14th century we did this. In the 8th century we did this. That's fantastic. The purpose of futures is to say, not what did you do, what do you wish to do?
Mm.
So start to imagine the future in the way you want it to be. So we see, again, if you see projects in the West, they have imaginations based on artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Now, from Muslim view, that may or may not be good, but you're not using how you see the world to imagine a different future. So if you don't use your cultural framework to imagine, then you purchase the future of someone else.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean to be only thinking of the past. It's very clear saying, what's the future of the Ummah in 2030? What do you want the Ummah to look like? What are some ways to start to take advantage of changes in global demographics, in artificial intelligence, in the apps you folks are creating? So those are different type of questions. Those are futures oriented. And so sometimes it's the groups that have less history are better at the future. So if you meet a professor of history, he or she may be interesting, but you can't talk about the future with them, right? They say, yeah, in 1920s we had a meeting. And you think, oh yeah, okay, thank you, but our question is different. What do you want the world to look like? What can you do today to create it? So futures thinking is solving tomorrow's problems today, looking for opportunities today to create a different tomorrow. That's all we're trying to do. And you can see for the Ummah to use that, it becomes a quite powerful way to think.
Yeah.
To think differently and to innovate differently.
My last questions. You mentioned earlier on the global crowdsourcing platform.
Yes.
That Muslims at large can actually bring along as many people as possible. It is clearly goes beyond government. It goes beyond traditional institutions.
Yes.
It can be a group of scientists scattered all over the world, group of philosophers, thinkers, economists, and others. If you can pinpoint a single most powerful multiplying theme that global crowdsourcing platform should start with.
I work contextually. I know you want me to find one theme,
Mm-hmm.
but let me give you examples. When General Electric was looking for a solution to some of their engine problems, they didn't ask their local engineers. They did a global crowdsourced competition. It was won by a 21-year-old Indonesian student. And he found a 3D printer in his compound, and he created the solution. Barcelona, the city, says, we have these problems. Do we ask our experts? Yes, but there's 8 billion people in the world, so let's ask them. So the multiplier theme is not a particular issue. The multiplier theme is, what is the problem we're facing in our village, in our city? How do we get the best minds everywhere and have them help us? So that's the multiplier. It's the many helping the few transform. But the actual problem cannot be what other people think it is. Only that community knows what they're really facing.
That means a local intelligence, the local genius play an important part.
The local genius has global impact, and global civilization can shape the local. That's why today is different.
There's a kind of a reciprocal relationships.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Your Ummatic can help do that. It becomes a vehicle to do that.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was cool.